I love everything about my wife, but one day, when she went to a party without my knowledge, everything started unraveling in the worst way possible. Ashley wasn't acting weird before that night. No sudden coldness, no fights, no lost intimacy. If anything, she had been more affectionate than usual, touching me more, kissing me longer, calling me pet names she hadn't used in years. I should have realized it then that overcompensation is the biggest red flag of all. It was a Friday evening, and I had just gotten home from work. I expected her to be in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone or playing music while cooking like she always did, but the house was quiet, too quiet. Then I saw the note on the counter. Going out for a little bit. Don't wait up. Love you? No explanation, no details, just that. I grabbed my phone and called her. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. A weird feeling clawed at the back of my mind, but I told myself I was being paranoid. She had the right to go out. She didn't need to tell me every little thing. Maybe she was out with coworkers, maybe her phone died, maybe I was just being an overthinking idiot. But then I saw her perfume bottle. It was on the counter, lying on its side like she had been in a hurry. That perfume, expensive as hell, was only for special occasions, fancy dinners, anniversaries. Definitely not a casual night out. Something was wrong. I checked our shared bank account. My stomach flipped when I saw the charge, $187.45 for a dinner reservation. Not just any dinner, but at Lel. That place had a 3-month waiting list. We had only been there once, years ago, for our anniversary. It wasn't somewhere you just casually dropped by. I scrolled through my messages with her. Nothing. No mention of dinner, no mention of going out. I clicked on her location, disabled. Ashley never disabled her location. A cold, sick realization settled in my gut. She was hiding something, and I needed to know what. I got in my car and drove to Lel. It was across town, nestled between luxury hotels and high-end boutiques. The kind of place where businessmen took their mistresses, where expensive wine flowed freely and secrets dripped off tongues between bites of filet mignon. When I pulled up, I didn't even know what I was expecting to find. Maybe I'd see her with friends, laughing over a bottle of wine. Maybe I'd see her sitting alone, waiting for someone who never showed up. But I wasn't ready for what I actually saw. Ashley, sitting at a table near the window, leaning in close to a man I had never seen before. She was smiling, touching his wrist, laughing at something he said, like he was the funniest man in the world, like he was someone special, like I didn't exist. The way she looked at him, I had seen that look before, on our wedding day, on our honeymoon, on the nights she whispered, "I love you," against my neck before falling asleep. She never looked at me like that anymore. I felt my heartbeat in my throat, my vision narrowing like a tunnel. My entire world, the life I thought I had, was crumbling right in front of me. I could have walked away. Could have turned around and gone home, pretended I never saw it. But something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to be the fool sitting in the dark while my wife played house with someone else. So I walked inside. The second I stepped into that restaurant, I felt like I was walking into some alternate reality where my marriage had never existed. The dim lighting, the quiet hum of conversation, the clinking of expensive silverware, it all felt distant, like background noise to the one thing I couldn't look away from, Ashley. She was sitting across from him, her body angled toward him in a way that screamed intimacy. One hand rested on the table, close to his, her fingers barely grazing his wrist. Every time she moved, she was laughing at something, some joke, some story, some inside thing that belonged to them, not me. I had seen my wife happy before, but this? This was different. This was pure adoration. And I knew, in that moment, I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to see this, but I did. I walked straight toward their table. Every step measured, my pulse pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. She didn't notice me at first, either of them did. They were too wrapped up in whatever fantasy they were playing out. It wasn't until I was standing right beside her that she finally looked up, and her face drained of color. "Ashley!" I said, my voice calm, too calm. She blinked, mouth slightly open, her eyes darting between me and the man sitting across from her. He looked confused, shifting in his seat, like he wasn't sure if he should say something or stay quiet. What are you doing here? She stammered. I let the silence stretch between us for just a second, too long, watched her squirm, watched the gears in her head turn as she scrambled for an excuse. I could ask you the same thing, I said finally. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I turned my attention to the man sitting across from her. He looked normal, too normal. Late 30s, clean-shaven, wearing an expensive watch and a button-down shirt that screamed, I have money. Who's this? I asked, my tone still neutral. The man had the audacity to hold out his hand like we were about to have a friendly introduction. I'm Daniel, he said. I didn't shake his hand. Ashley sat up straighter, swallowing hard. This is just a friend. A friend? I glanced at the nearly empty wine glasses, the shared dessert plate, the way her leg was almost touching his under the table. My jaw clenched. A friend? I repeated. So you'd be fine if I sit down? Her eyes widened slightly. What? I pulled out the chair next to her and sat. Just like that, she stiffened beside me. Her breathing shallow, her hands folding into her lap like she could physically hide her guilt. Daniel, the stranger, was still staring at me, clearly uncomfortable now. So, Daniel, I said, leaning back. How do you know my wife? He hesitated, looked at Ashley. She gave him the slightest shake of her head, a warning. That was all I needed. I let out a low breath, shaking my head. Jesus, Ashley. She reached for my arm, her voice dropping to a whisper. Can we talk about this outside? I pulled my arm away. Why? So you can come up with a better lie? Her nostrils flared. Lower your voice. That set me off. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Oh, I'm sorry, am I embarrassing you? I gestured around. Are you worried people might hear how you lied to your husband to sneak off to some overpriced restaurant with what? Your coworker? Your little boyfriend? A couple at a nearby table glanced over, pretending not to listen. Ashley's face burned red. It's not like that. Then explain it, I said, staring at her. Explain why you told me you were out with friends. Explain why your location was turned off. Explain why you're sitting here with this guy, looking at him like he's your whole world. She said nothing because there was nothing she could say. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating, and then Daniel, this clueless, smug piece of ST, finally spoke. Look, man, I didn't know she was married. I turned my head so fast it almost hurt. Really? That's interesting, because she's wearing her wedding ring. His eyes flicked to Ashley's hand, the very obvious gold band on her finger. Ashley snatched her hand under the table, and right there, that was it. That was the confirmation. That was the moment I knew I wasn't dealing with a misunderstanding. I was dealing with a full-blown, carefully constructed lie. I pushed back my chair and stood. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. Enjoy the rest of your night, Ashley, I said. I turned to walk away. She grabbed my wrist. Wait. I pulled away from her touch like it burned. Don't. I didn't wait for her to say anything else. I didn't want to hear whatever pathetic excuse she was about to come up with. I just walked out, my entire world crashing down around me. I don't remember the drive home. I barely remember getting in the car, barely remember starting the engine. My hands were steady on the wheel, my breathing controlled, but my mind was in complete chaos. Ashley, my wife, sitting across from another man, touching his wrist, laughing like she didn't have a husband waiting for her at home, like I didn't exist, like the last 7 years were nothing but background noise to whatever the hell this was. A friend. That's what she called him. If that was just a friend, then I was the damn President of the United States. The worst part? That little shake of her head when I asked how they knew each other. That silent warning to him as if to say, shut up. Don't say too much. Don't give anything away. That wasn't just guilt. That was calculation. I pulled into the driveway and sat in the car for a second, staring at our house like it belonged to someone else. The porch light was on, glowing softly against the night. The front door, the same door Ashley and I had walked through 1,000 times together, looked foreign. I didn't go inside. Not yet. I needed to process. Because I knew, the second she came home, she'd have a story. A carefully constructed, well-rehearsed story. She'd walk through that door and pretend nothing happened. She'd take off her shoes, stretch, maybe even try to kiss me, like she hadn't just spent the night lying to my face. And I wasn't sure how I was going to react, so I waited. And she came home exactly 23 minutes later. Her car pulled in next to mine, the headlights sweeping across the driveway. I watched as she sat there for a second, hands gripping the wheel, probably rehearsing what she was about to say. Then, like clockwork, she got out, adjusted her dress like she wasn't just out being a lying piece of garbage, and walked toward the house. I didn't move. I sat on the porch, arms crossed, watching her approach. The second she saw me, she hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, then her face shifted, soft, innocent, confused. "Hey," she said, smiling like she wasn't about to try and gaslight me into another dimension. "What are you doing out here?" I didn't smile back. Didn't say anything at first. I just let the silence sit between us, let her squirm under the weight of it. She glanced at the door. "Why are you just sitting outside?" I leaned forward slightly. "Where were you?" Her eyebrows pulled together in a perfect imitation of confusion. "What do you mean?" "I told you I was out with friends." I let out a slow breath, nodding. "Right, friends." I tilted my head, studying her like she was some stranger I had never met before. "Which ones?" Something flickered across her face, the smallest crack in her perfect mask. She hadn't been expecting that question. She recovered quickly. "You don't know them." I laughed. I actually laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that cut through the night. "That's crazy, because I could have sworn you were having dinner with some guy named Daniel." Boom. Her face dropped completely, and then she started laughing, actually laughing, like I had just accused her of being an undercover spy or some ridiculous, impossible thing. "Oh my God!" she said, shaking her head, smiling. "Are you serious right now?" I didn't blink. Didn't break eye contact. Her smile faltered. She let out a breath, crossing her arms. "You're acting insane." "Who told you that?" she asked. I raised an eyebrow. "Who told me?" "Yeah," she said, shifting her weight. "Because clearly someone's been feeding you a bunch of nonsense." I let that sit in the air for a second. Just watched her, because this was it. This was who she was. She wasn't the woman I married. She wasn't the woman I had loved for 7 years. She was standing here, looking me dead in the face, and she wasn't sorry. She was covering her tracks. She was trying to make me look crazy. "You're unbelievable," I muttered, standing up. She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, come on. This is ridiculous. Do you really think I'd cheat on you?" I just looked at her, because the real question was, do you even care that you got caught? She must have seen something in my face, some shift, some realization, because her expression changed. The arrogance melted away, replaced with something else, panic. "Babe," she said, reaching for me, her voice suddenly soft. "Let's just talk, okay? Let's go inside." I stepped back. "Don't." Her hand hovered in the air for a second before she slowly pulled it back. And that's when I saw it, the ring. Her wedding ring. Still there. Still sitting on her finger like a mockery. Like it meant something. Like it wasn't just another lie. I exhaled, shaking my head. "Take it off." Her eyes widened. "What?" I looked at her, at this woman who had just spent the entire night with another man, and still had the audacity to stand here in front of me pretending. "Take it off." She hesitated. I took another step back. "If you're going to pretend like this marriage is a joke, at least commit to it." She stared at me, and then, After a long, agonizing moment, she reached for the ring and slid it off her finger. I nodded. Then I turned around and walked inside, leaving her standing there, ring in hand, the weight of her own choices finally crashing down. The moment I stepped inside, I locked the door behind me, not because I thought she wouldn't come in. I knew she would. But I needed 1 second. 1 second to breathe, to process, to exist in this house without the weight of her lies suffocating me. Because now, there were no doubts, no second guessing, no. Maybe I misunderstood. I had caught her red-handed. I moved to the kitchen, bracing my hands against the counter, staring at the marble like it held some kind of answer, like it could tell me why. Because that was the thing, wasn't it? I still didn't know why. 7 years? 7 damn years. We built a life together. We had traditions, inside jokes, lazy Sunday mornings where she'd steal the blankets and pretend not to hear me complain. Did any of that mean anything to her? The doorknob rattled behind me. A second later, the key turned, and Ashley walked in. She had put the ring back on. I let out a short, humorless laugh, shaking my head. Seriously? Her fingers twitched at her sides. We need to talk. We don't need to do anything, I said, turning to face her, arms crossed. I think I got the message loud and clear. She took a step closer. It's not what you think. My head snapped up. Are you actually saying that to me? She swallowed. I know how it looks, but you have to let me explain. Explain? I repeated, incredulous. You mean lie some more? Her nostrils flared. I'm not lying. I let out a sharp breath, pressing my tongue against my teeth, willing myself to stay calm. Fine. Then tell me the truth. Ashley, who is he? She hesitated just for a second, but that second told me everything. He's just a friend, she said again, softer this time, like she was trying to convince herself. I clenched my jaw. Try again. Silence. I stepped forward. Was it the first time? Her eyes darted away. That was enough. I let out a breath, nodding. That's what I thought. She bit her lip, shifting her weight. It doesn't mean anything. That did it. That set me off. It doesn't mean anything? I laughed, running a hand through my hair. Are you serious, Ashley? You went behind my back, you turned off your location, you met some guy at a restaurant we went to for our anniversary, and you're standing here telling me it doesn't mean anything? She flinched, just barely, but I saw it. I shook my head, stepping away. God, I can't believe this. I exhaled sharply, gripping the back of a chair. How long? She hesitated again. I turned to face her fully, my voice low. How long? She looked at the floor. A few months. My stomach dropped. I had prepared for weeks, a drunken mistake, a one-time thing. But months? That was an entire second life. I let out a hollow laugh, running a hand down my face. Just... Ashley. She took a shaky breath. I didn't mean for it to happen. I snapped my head up. You didn't mean for it to happen? I scoffed. You didn't mean to text him? To meet up? To lie to my face over and over? Tears welled in her eyes. I still love you. My stomach twisted. I almost wanted to believe her, almost. But love? Love doesn't look like this. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't sneak around in hotel bars and candlelit dinners while their spouse is sitting at home trusting them. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Then why? She hesitated too long, and when she finally answered, it shattered everything. I just wanted something exciting. Silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room, it chokes it. I took a slow step back, nodding more to myself than her. Exciting, I echoed, my voice oddly steady. Got it. Her eyes widened slightly, like she realized too late that she had just buried herself. I didn't mean. I held up a hand. No, you did. I exhaled, nodding again. You meant it. And you know what? That's the first honest thing you've said all night. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I let the silence sit between us, let the weight of everything sink in, and then quietly I said, I want a divorce. Ashley inhaled sharply. Wait. I'm done. I turned, heading for the stairs. I didn't want to hear her excuses. I didn't want to hear her apologies. I didn't care anymore. She rushed forward, grabbing my arm. Just let me explain. I pulled away. You already did. And this time, when I walked away, I didn't stop. Ashley didn't take no for an answer. I barely made it up the stairs before she was on my heels, practically stumbling over herself in her desperation. She wasn't crying, not yet. No, that would come later when she realized this wasn't just a fight, when she realized I was actually done. She grabbed my wrist again. You're being irrational. I turned so fast, she almost crashed into me. Irrational? I repeated, my voice eerily calm. Ashley, I just caught you lying to my face. You've been sneaking around with some other guy for months, and now that I finally know the truth, you want to call me irrational? She opened her mouth. Shut it. Then, after a beat, she exhaled sharply. I made a mistake. I scoffed. A mistake? I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is saying something stupid in the middle of a fight. A mistake is not carrying on an affair for months and only stopping when you get caught. Her lips pressed together. It wasn't an affair. I let the silence stretch, gave her a chance to correct herself. She didn't. I tilted my head. Tell me something, Ashley. If I had gone out tonight and found you at your sister's house, like you originally said, where would you be right now? She swallowed. I took a step closer. Would you be in his bed? Her face twisted. That's not fair. I let out a short breath, nodding. That's what I thought. She grabbed my arm again, tighter this time, too tight. I love you. I yanked my arm free. No, you don't. Her mouth parted slightly. Yes, No, I said again, my voice sharper this time. You don't get to say that to me. Not after tonight. Not after everything. Her breathing was uneven now, panic creeping into her features. Good. I wanted her to feel that. I wanted her to feel at least a fraction of the wreckage she had just left me with. I turned away, heading for the bedroom. Ashley followed. Of course, she did. She moved in front of me, blocking the door like she actually thought she could keep me from leaving. You don't mean it, she said quickly. You don't actually want a divorce. You're just angry. And then, slowly, I smiled. Not because I was happy, not because I forgave her, but because she still thought she could talk her way out of this. That's where you're wrong, I said quietly. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Her breath hitched. I pushed past her, grabbed a duffel bag from the closet, and started packing. Ashley's voice rose. You're not thinking this through. I didn't even look at her. No, Ashley. I am thinking this through. You just don't like the answer. She moved closer. Can't we just? I held up a hand. Stop. Her jaw clenched. You're really just going to throw everything away? I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Me? I'm throwing everything away. She had the nerve to look hurt. I zipped the bag. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. Her eyes widened. Wait. I slung the bag over my shoulder. We'll talk about the divorce later. Ashley grabbed my shirt. No! You don't get to just walk away. I peeled her fingers off me, one by one. Watch me. And then, for the last time that night, I left her behind. The hotel room was quiet. Too quiet. No hum of the dishwasher running in the background, no distant sound of Ashley humming to herself while scrolling through her phone, no warmth of her presence anywhere near me. And for the first time in years, I realized how long it had been since I'd actually felt alone. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, trying to process the past few hours, the betrayal, the confrontation, the way she still tried to lie, even when the truth was staring both of us in the face. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling sharply. I was angry. Furious. But beneath that, buried under all the resentment and the disgust, there was something else, lost. Not for her. Not anymore. But for the life I thought I had, the marriage I thought I had. That's what hurt the most. Not the cheating. Not the lies. But the fact that I actually believed we were happy, and she let me believe it. My phone vibrated beside me. I already knew who it was. Ashley. I ignored it. A minute later, another text came through. Then another. Then my phone rang. I clenched my jaw, debating whether to throw the damn thing across the room or just shut it off. I didn't go home. I thought about it, thought about walking through that door, sitting her down, letting her cry, letting her beg, letting her make it my problem to fix. But I didn't. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't putting her feelings first. Instead, I got up, took a long, scalding shower, and stared at myself in the mirror for way too long. Afterward, I looked tired, not just from last night, but from everything. From the years of carrying a marriage I didn't even realize had been falling apart. From loving someone who clearly had no idea what love actually meant. By the time I left the hotel, my phone was still lighting up with her messages. I ignored them. And that's when the next phase of Ashley's game started. She stopped texting and started calling people instead. I knew something was up the second I stepped into my car and saw a missed call from her sister, Olivia. Then another. Then a text, "What the hell is going on?" I groaned, rubbing my temples. Here we go. Before I could even decide if I wanted to respond, my phone rang again. Not Ashley. Not Olivia. My mom. I sighed and answered. "Hey, are you okay?" Straight to the point. I exhaled. "I am fine." There was a beat of silence, then a careful, measured pause. "Ashley called me," my mom said. Of course she did. I leaned back against the seat, staring up at the roof of the car. "What did she say?" "That she made a mistake," my mom said. "That she's devastated that you won't talk to her." I almost laughed. Almost. "She left out the part where she's been sneaking around with another guy for months," I said dryly. Another pause, then quietly. "She mentioned something." I shook my head. "Unbelievable." "She said she wants to fix things," my mom continued. "That she's willing to do whatever it takes." I clenched my jaw. "She doesn't get to say that. You don't just break someone's trust over and over and then decide you want to fix it when you finally get caught," I said, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "I know," my mom said gently. "I'm not saying you should forgive her. I just wanted to hear it from you, to know what actually happened." I sighed, gripping the steering wheel. "She cheated, Mom. She lied about it. She tried to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy when I caught her. And when she realized I was actually done, she ran straight to you." Silence. Then finally, "I'm sorry." I let out a slow breath. "Me too." We talked for a few more minutes about nothing, really, before I finally hung up. And I knew, deep in my gut, that Ashley wasn't done. She had called her sister. She had called my mother. There was only one other person she had left to call, and I knew exactly what she was going to say. I barely had time to put my phone down before it rang again. Not Ashley. Not her sister. Not my mom. Ryan. My best friend. The guy who had been there through everything: college, my wedding, the highs, the lows, the nights we stayed up talking about the kind of lives we wanted to build. And now Ashley had dragged him into this too. I exhaled hard before answering. "Let me guess. Ashley called you?" Ryan let out a low breath. "Yeah, man, she did." I closed my eyes. "Of course she did. What did she say?" I asked, already knowing I was about to hear some version of, "I made a mistake, I love him, I don't want to lose him." Ryan hesitated too long. And that's when I knew. "She's telling people a different story, isn't she?" I said flatly. He didn't answer right away. That was answer enough. I laughed, a sharp, bitter, humorless sound. "Jesus Christ," I muttered. I braced myself. Go on. Another pause. She's saying you've been distant, that things haven't been great between you two for a while. I blinked. Excuse me? She's saying you've been working too much, that you stopped making her feel wanted. That she was vulnerable, and this guy, who she swears meant nothing, just filled a void. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. A void? A void? She was actually trying to flip this on me, trying to make people believe I had pushed her into cheating? I let out a slow breath, willing myself to stay calm. And what do you think? Ryan didn't hesitate this time. I think that's a load of ST. I finally let out a breath, some of the tension easing from my shoulders. Good. But I think she's going to keep pushing that story, he continued. She wants people on her side, and if she keeps saying it enough, someone's going to believe her. I scoffed. I don't give a damn what people believe. Ryan sighed. Man, you say that now, but wait until the rumors start. Wait until someone in your circle says, well, maybe she wouldn't have cheated if he had just paid more attention to her. I clenched my jaw because I knew exactly how this worked. People love a good story, and Ashley, she knew how to sell it. I let out a slow breath. What would you do? Ryan was quiet for a second, then simply said, Get ahead of it. I frowned. What do you mean? I mean, don't let her control the narrative. Tell people the truth before she twists it into something it's not, because once she gets in their heads, that's it. That's the version they'll believe. I exhaled. I don't want to make this messier than it already is. Ryan sighed. I get that, but do you really want to sit back while she makes you the villain? I stared out the windshield. No, I said quietly. I don't. Because I had spent this entire marriage putting Ashley's feelings first, defending her, supporting her, loving her. And now, she was trying to rewrite the story, trying to turn herself into the victim. Not this time. I wasn't going to let Ashley rewrite my story. She had already taken enough from me, my trust, my time, the version of our marriage I thought was real. But this was where it ended. I wasn't going to sit back while she painted me as the distant husband who pushed her into another man's arms. I wasn't going to let her twist the truth into something that made her feel better about what she did. So, I took Ryan's advice. I made the calls. I told my side first. I called my mom and told her everything Ashley left out. I called Olivia and told her how Ashley lied, how she covered her tracks, how she only started feeling guilty the second she got caught. And then, finally, I sent one last text to Ashley. I didn't argue. Didn't feed into the endless cycle of excuses, the manipulative. I still love you. The desperate. Can't we just talk? I kept it simple, undeniable. Final. I told everyone the truth. Don't contact me again unless it's about the divorce. That was it. No. Maybe one day we can be friends. No. I'll always care about you. No room for her to twist this into anything other than what it was. The end. For the first time in weeks, my phone was silent. No texts. No calls. No Ashley. And I can't lie, it hurt. Not because I wanted her back. Not because I missed her. But because, for 7 years, she was my person, the one I shared my life with, the one I thought would always be in my corner. But that person didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. And now, I was done grieving her. Because I knew one thing for certain, the next chapter of my life, she wouldn't be in it.